Okay, I want to welcome our Macomb County delegation from Lansing. There's a great group of you, a lot of brains up here, and a lot of good answers will come out. And the reason is I asked for all you to come down here is some of the commissioners have questions what's going on in Lansing about this, and this. Well, the best way I thought would be bring you all down if possible, and then you can answer it. I don't think we should direct any one thing at any certain representative or who else is here, but a question in general. So on behalf of the board, it's a thrill to have you all here, and we hope we get some good answers. And anybody that gripes or bitches about something after the meeting, I'm going to say, why didn't you ask it while they were here? Okay? Thank you.
Yes. Great. Thank you, Marv. As Commissioner Sauger said, welcome. It's great to see so many of you show up here today. We're very happy to have you, and we hope that this works out for everybody here. So we all have what's on the in front of us that we'll just talk about the communities you represent, the committees which you serve, 2 initiatives that you're involved in. How do the initiatives affect Macomb County residents, and maybe briefly explain one of the upcoming issues which you feel like the commissioners might be aware of. And then we'll have some question and answers after that. So, Commissioner Duge, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although we thank the delegation from Lansing, we also have certain people here from Washington, D.C., from Senator Stabenow and Peters' office, and from Congressman Levin and Mitchell's office. So I'd like to welcome everybody, not just from Lansing, but from parts unknown also. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, and I would hope that would have been something that we would all receive, that you're all welcome here, whether you're from Lansing or from Washington, but again, welcome. So we're going to start off with Senator Debbie Stabenow's office. We have Amanda York representing the senator, so welcome, Amanda.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity today. My name's Amanda York. I'm the regional manager for Senator Debbie Stabenow here in Macomb County. I also cover Wayne County, defense, and healthcare issues for the senator in the state of Michigan. The senator is the ranking member of the Senate Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee. She was very excited to work with Chairman Pat Roberts on the recent farm bill that did pass the Senate. It was a very strong bipartisan bill. And really, the Farm Bill is essentially a jobs bill. 1 in 4 jobs here in Michigan is impacted by that industry. And just last week, in fact, she was able to tour 2 of our great farms here in Macomb County. She was at Blake's Orchards, as well as Youngblood Vineyards in Ray Township. She's also on the Committee of Budget, the Committee of Energy and Natural Resources, the Committee on Finance, where she serves as the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Healthcare. As far as priorities or initiatives, Senator Stabenow's biggest passion is our Great Lakes. It's 1/5 of the world's fresh water. 33 million people get their drinking water from our Great Lakes. She authored the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative in the Senate. As many of you know, that's resulted in $14 million of GLRI projects right here in Macomb County, including the Clinton River Spillway, where the senator was with County Drain Commissioner Candace Miller a few months ago when they were finishing up that project. Most recently, unfortunately, the president zeroed out funding in the budget for the GLRI, and Senator Stabenow led a delegation, a bipartisan delegation, to not only restore that funding, but to increase funding in the next few years. Other than Great Lakes, just to pick another one, workforce development is very important to the senator, one of her priorities. She's constantly meeting with business owners around the state who are concerned about critical needs for more skilled workers, as well as educators and parents of students who may not be our traditional college-bound students, but still want a good paying job for their child. Last summer, she brought together these leaders across the state to discuss how we can partner together to meet the needs of employers and provide job opportunities for Michigan workers and students. She held one of these meetings here in Macomb County at the Detroit Electrical Industrial Training Center in Warren. Attendees included local labor leaders, business owners, representatives from Macomb Community College, the Macomb ISD, as well as students and parents. And these meetings directly resulted in Senator Stabenow's New Skills for New Jobs agenda, which is a package of bills she introduced in the Senate to help every young person get the skills they need for a good-paying job. Recently, just a few weeks ago, Senator Stabenow's career counseling bill was signed into law. This legislation will allow school districts and community colleges to use federal funding to recruit and retain career counselors who can put students on a path towards a rewarding career in manufacturing and skilled trades, as well as a 4-year degree. As far as upcoming issues, I think Macomb residents would be interested in. She's constantly looking to lower the price of prescription drug coverage. She believes healthcare is a basic human right, and that includes being able to afford your prescription drugs. Knowing the lowest price at the pharmacy is a bill she's recently introduced. Many pharmacists, I think a lot of people don't realize this, but many pharmacists are prohibited from telling their customers that medications may cost less if they pay out of pocket than if they submit it through their insurance. Senator Stabenow's Know the Lowest Price Act will crack down on this practice by prohibiting insurance companies and pharmacy managers from restricting pharmacists' ability to provide that drug price information. She's also working on negotiating better prices through Medicare and importing safe and affordable medicine. So I hope that answers all of your questions. Just a few
That's
topics. She
fantastic.
does cover the entire state of Michigan. She's here every weekend, usually flying in and out of the Detroit airport, so we see her frequently here in southeast Michigan. But she's very busy traveling the entire state.
Fantastic. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. We're going to take a few questions if anyone has them after each. I don't expect too many questions, and we're just going to go with the hand method because of the way this is set up right here. So anybody have any questions of Amanda? Commissioner Dujay?
Thank you, Mr.
You
Chairman.
raised your hand but shook your head no. I didn't know what
No,
that meant.
no.
All right.
We'll go for it. That's right. Or what? As far as the Great Lakes and the water, are there any initiatives going on for the Asian carp?
Yes.
First of all, and second of all, are the zebra mussels still on the radar, or have everybody forgot about those little critters?
Right. No, Senator Stabenow is very focused on invasive species. I mean, our industry here in Michigan, I know I have the numbers, but, we have a huge recreation boating industry. I think it's like $16 million. We have a recreation fishing industry that's over, it's several $1 million in revenue, and thousands of jobs here in the state of Michigan are related to our waters. So that's very important. She's been working with other Great Lake legislators in surrounding states to erect those barriers to prevent Asian carp from entering into Lake Michigan, and you'll probably have heard her speak to this issue before. It's a very important topic, and she's working pretty hard on keeping that out of our lakes. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, Amanda, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to let all the commissioners know and the representatives that we're going to do a recap of this meeting and kind of do a notes section for each one of you who spoke. And so you'll all have it, so you don't have to take notes on everybody. We're going to go back through it and present it to everybody as soon as we can. So thank you. From Senator Gary Peters' office, we have Kevin Hurritt. Kevin, welcome.
Well, thank you, Chairman Smith, and all the rest of all of you on the board today. And first of all, I wanted to start out by saying it's been a pleasure to have gotten to know all of you over the last 2.5 years that I've been working with Senator Peters, Republicans and Democrats. When I think about talking about what Senator Peters is working on, we look at representation as finding a goal to work with the entire community. And Senator Peters prides himself on working in a bipartisan manner to get things done. He represents the entire state of Michigan. He currently serves on the Armed Services Committee. We are fortunate in Macomb County to have a thriving defense industry. And in Macomb County, we're also fortunate to have both a member of Congress and a member of the Senate on Armed Services Committee, with Representative Mitchell being on the Armed Services Committee in the House and Senator Peters being on the Armed Services Committee in the Senate. That allows us to have more clout in Washington to support our industry here in Macomb County. Everybody knows that manufacturing, automotive, and defense are the lifeblood of the heavy industry here in Macomb County. It was one of the reasons why we were happy, along with the rest of our federal delegation, to be able to announce the $98 million for the infra grant for Mound Road. It was one of the justifications for that grant that we had one of the most dense and most important industrial corridors in the entire country. And we were able to make that argument repeatedly to the Department of Transportation. Senator Peters also serves on the Homeland Security Committee. In the Homeland Security, he serves on the Coast Guard Subcommittee, and obviously working on a different component of the Great Lakes than what Senator Stabenow was talking about, to make sure we keep our shores safe and our homeland safe. Senator Peters also serves on the Commerce, Science, and Technology Committee, and that puts him in the center of most of our economic conversations. He has spent a lot of time, and there are too many bills to enumerate, but he has pretty regularly put out bills to support small business, whether it's through supporting small businesses with their cybersecurity needs, supporting small businesses with capital and finance. It's been a big focus of his throughout his career, or supporting small businesses in their efforts to find and retain workers. He also serves on the Joint Economic Committee. And that committee is a joint committee between the House and the Senate, which works on kind of broad U.S. policy. In terms of initiatives that he's involved in, I think two of them to talk about. I talked a little bit about defense, but another one to talk about is autonomous vehicles and the future of our automotive industry and the future of technology. Now, we are poised as a region. We're delighted to have one of the highest educated when it comes to engineering talent in the entire country. And we need to take advantage of that. And one of the ways to take advantage of that is to be on the forefront of the future of the automotive industry. I don't think I have to tell anybody in this room that the automotive industry, if those jobs start to leave, that would be an absolute catastrophe for our region. Fortunately, we have been on the forefront of this. The American Center for Mobility was a big initiative that Senator Peters was working on. Now, that's down in Willow Run. But what that means is that all of the future testing for autonomous vehicles is going to be taking place here in Michigan, close to all of our major automakers, and making sure that we continue to have that industry into the 21st century. But that means more than just having the auto industry here. It means the suppliers. Macomb County, there's probably no county in the state that has more auto suppliers and more assembly and stamping jobs than Macomb County. We're proud of that, and the only way we're going to keep that industry here is by being on the forefront of the future of that technology. And then finally, I think to wrap this up here, I would just say that, you know, all of the things I talked about definitely will have a great impact on the Macomb residents in Macomb County. I'd like to echo, and I'm sure Senator Stabenow's representative would echo these statements back, that our offices work very closely together. We are fortunate to have senators who are on different committees, so that Michigan is well served in a variety of different areas, and that makes for a real benefit for both Macomb County and the rest of the state of Michigan. With that, I think I'll conclude my remarks and take a few questions.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot. Any questions? Commissioner Leonetti?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Kevin.
Hey, good to see you.
One question I have for you down the road, and if you have answers on it, is it affects Harrison Township, where I come from, Selfridge Air Force Base, the F-35. What's down the road on that? I mean, we lost on the first round. Anything that we're going to do differently here for the second round when it's available?
Well, so yeah, F-35, that's a great question, and I know everybody in this room worked really hard to try to get that first round of F-35 into Selfridge Air Force Base. Now, fortunately, Selfridge has been granted military construction money to spend up to $80 million upgrading their fighter facilities, which means that in the long run, the Air Force and the Department of Defense has plans for a fighter mission at Selfridge. So that's first and foremost. Second, our delegation has been very effective at protecting the A-10 mission. And because our delegation was so effective at getting funding for A-10s to keep our mission in Selfridge. The Chief of Staff of the Air Force thought it would be easier to shift out F-16s and F-15s as opposed to shifting out A-10s because the A-10s are funded in the foreseeable future. That being said, Selfridge will if Selfridge continues to have a fighter mission into the future, which the construction money seems that is likely to be, then Selfridge will eventually, because all fighters are going to transition to F-35, will have an F-35 squadron stationed at Selfridge. It's just a matter of time. And, the Air Force has their broader plans on decommissioning old platforms, and that's just going to take some time. But, the funding is there. There's bipartisan support for those fighters, and we're hoping to bring them to Macomb County here eventually. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. We all appreciate all of your work on that. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you, Chair. My husband works at the Tech Center, and not that long ago, one of his roles was working on the autonomous vehicles and how they communicate with the surrounding. One of the big concerns about having them here is the condition of our roads. It adds a layer of complexity to what they're doing. It's very hard to test here because our roads are in such poor condition. Are you concerned at all about that being a hindering block for us to be able to succeed there?
I'd say that I couldn't possibly not say that I would be concerned about the conditions of our road. I think I'd look like a crazy person if I was professing otherwise here. We have a lot of work to do, both on the state, federal, and local level to get our roads fixed. Certainly, I know our delegation kind of generally is very supportive of that, and you saw that around the Mountain Road project and around funding for 696 a couple years ago and all that kind of stuff. That is a bit of a concern, and it's been raised with us before. I don't think that the rest of the country is in much better shape than we are. They're in better shape, but they're not in much better shape. Our competitive advantage is that the auto companies and their research facilities are here in Michigan, and so that's why I think that it is certainly a concern, but probably not. So long as we all do our jobs, not going to be a concern in the long run because we're going to get these roads fixed and figure out how to do that. So.
I hope you're correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Duge.
I just can't keep quiet with the Senate in front of us. Good afternoon and welcome, Kevin. Question, as far as Selfridge, I think you've done a good job in keeping A-10s. A-10 funding came in to fix all the wings on the A-10s, and that actually helps Selfridge stick around. 10 years ago or less, we were fighting to keep Selfridge here, between Selfridge and TACOM. That was a very important fight, and it's paying dividends now. So I'm very, very happy to see Senator Peters working on that. But now for something else, have you gotten your motorcycle license yet so you can ride with the senator?
I will get my motorcycle license as soon as my better half allows me to get a motorcycle license. So that's probably not going to happen, Commissioner, but I'd be happy to give you her phone number, and you can give her a call. Try to persuade her. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? No? Well, Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Congressman Sandy Levin was not able to make it, but we have Kyle Polit. Kyle, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members, for allowing us to be here with you today. I know a lot of you through my work in the community, but for those that I don't know, my name is Kyle Polit. I work as an outreach representative for Congressman Sandy Levin. And Congressman Levin, as you know, represents the 9th Congressional District. That is a big chunk of Macomb County from 8 Mile Road, I like to say up to Hall Road, minus a portion of Sterling Heights, which we share with the 10th District. The 9th also extends into southeast Oakland County, where we have communities such as Royal Oak, Ferndale, and also Bloomfield Township. Congressman Levin is the former ranking member on the House Ways and Means Committee, and he maintains a leadership role within the committee as the ranking member on the Healthcare Subcommittee within the Ways and Means Committee. In his role on the Healthcare Subcommittee, the congressman has introduced a piece of legislation which is H.R. 3111, and this actually would close a benefit gap in Medicare that would provide coverage to comprehensive dental, vision, and hearing care to senior citizens. And this is a bill that provides reasonable measures to phase these benefits in and also to reduce the costs of such benefits. The bill is co-sponsored by more than 30 congressional members, and it remains a priority with Congressman Levin and other Democrats on the Health Care Subcommittee and Ways and Means Committee. Another important effort that the Congressman has been extremely passionate about, and which plays into his role in Ways and Means Committee, is international trade. Now, he is one of very few congressional representatives who have actually been to the NAFTA renegotiation hearings that have occurred in Canada and Mexico in the last year. And so because he's so passionate about that, it's been something that he's been following very closely and has been very active on. And I think one of the main points that he's been pushing on NAFTA renegotiations is trying to encourage Mexico to pay their workers fair wages because they do not currently have a very fair industrial policy. And what this does is undermines United States manufacturing workers. And so the idea is if we get Mexican workers some fair wages, we can bring those jobs back home to Macomb County and to the rest of the United States. So these efforts in Washington, D.C. are obviously a top priority for the congressman. But locally, you know, he's still doing a lot that we can improve our home communities. Similar to what Kevin said and Senator Peters' office, we were a big part in encouraging the Department of Transportation to fund that infra grant for Mound Road. And I also wanted to thank you all on behalf of the congressman who knows that we could not have done this if we didn't do it as a community. So, as you may also know, Congressman Levin is one of the original co-sponsors or co-authors of the Drug-Free Community Act. And what this act does is provides federal money to local community coalitions to help prevent substance abuse, primarily in student-aged children, but also to more focus on a community level to make sure that our residents are living safe and healthy lives. Now, through the efforts of Congressman Levin and our office, we're very proud to say that very soon we will have a community coalition in every community in the 9th District. And, you know, during a time where the opioid crisis is claiming lives within this county, I would strongly encourage each board member to become active in the community coalition, because it's something that will not only benefit your education on the subject, but will also help to spread the message throughout your communities of what's happening and what we can do in partnership to help, again, have the residents lead safe and healthy lifestyles. In closing, Congressman Levin's office remains committed to providing resources and services to the residents of the 9th District. And in your work, if you encounter a constituent who's having a difficulty with a federal agency, please refer them to our office or to the senator's office or to Congressman Mitchell's office. We pride ourselves in being able to resolve those issues for constituents. I personally handle all Veterans Affairs issues for the congressman, and in conjunction with the work that this board has done to promote veteran services and encourage veterans to seek out services, we've already made a huge difference in the lives of Macomb County service members. And I hope that we can continue that relationship and continue to provide resources to the 9th District. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Great. Thank you, Kyle. Any of the commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Leonetti.
Yeah, man. Good to see you, Kyle. So Sandy has been in Congress for how long?
This is, I think, 38
calculator?
Right,
years. 38 years.
And he is a ranking, I mean, I think Ways and Means is probably one of the most important committees you can be on. Now, what happens? We're going to lose him here this year, and having a person from Macomb County that represents Macomb County and being on Ways and Means is very beneficial, not just to Macomb County, but to the state of Michigan. So what happens then? I don't, now, so presumably well, we won't discuss who wins, but I mean, we're going to have a new junior congressman come in there. Is that congressperson going to be put into Ways and Means, or do they start off someplace else?
It's not determined what committees they'll have. That's something that's determined at the leadership level
Right.
within the caucus. I mean, I would imagine Congressman Levin, without speaking out of line, would help to encourage whoever comes next to make sure that we do have that gap covered.
Yeah.
We saw that when Senator Peters ascended to Carl Levin's seat, that he really was active in obtaining that role so that we could continue to provide defense funding for the state of Michigan. I imagine that Congressman Levin will definitely want to protect that legacy and make sure whoever comes next has the best opportunity to serve the community in the same way.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Nobody? Great. All right, well, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. So Congressman Paul Mitchell couldn't be here, but we have Commissioner Don Brown, who works in Commissioner Mitchell's office, here to say a few words on his behalf.
Hello there. You guys get a Mitchell report from me just about every time we see each other, but to the benefit of the other legislators, we'll give you some more information. The Congressman's ending his first term in Congress, and he serves on 2 A committees in the House, Transportation and Infrastructure, as well as recently was appointed to the House Armed Services Committee. Really a good plus with Senator Peters in the Senate and now with Congressman Mitchell in the House. We're one of the few states that has the luxury of having both a member in the Senate and in the House Armed Services Committee. So we're working on both ends, and both the senator and the congressman get along very well, and they're all on the same page, working together on all issues for the state, but particularly here in our southeast Michigan area when it comes to Selfridge. The congressman's also on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and he serves on the subcommittee on aviation. He's the vice chair of that, and also on the subcommittee on highways and rail. An interesting rail is an infrastructure issue that really is in need of work in the state, because Michigan's #2 industry in the state is agriculture. And one of the main ways we get agriculture out of our state is by rail. Unfortunately, the rail of the state is, much of the short line's in poor condition and is in need of some plus up to get that agriculture products out to market. And so they're trying to work on that. They're working on a bill in the House to invest in America again, rebuild America. We've rebuilt all the countries overseas, and that'll be an area that the Congress is particularly interested in trying to help work and support. The other subcommittees I failed to mention in Armed Services, he's also on the subcommittee on Sea Power and Protection Forces, as well as on the subcommittee on Strategic Forces. He also serves on another committee that's not quite as large, but it's the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And he serves on the subcommittee on Health Care and Benefits and Administrative Rules, and the subcommittee on Information Technology. And with all the hacking going on in the economy and all the stuff making the news about protecting our elections, there's a lot of interest in that whole subject area, and they're delving into it with the best minds of the country to try to see what they can do to help address some of those issues. Some of the initiatives he's been involved on, the whole delegation's been big supports for bringing Mound Road. That Mound Road was the largest road investment by the federal government for a non-U.S. highway. I-75, the major U.S. freeways. There was a large sum that come into the county, and Congressman Mitchell was very happy to work with our delegation and work with the Trump administration to try to bring that money here to the county, and we're looking forward to getting it going. Recently, they just announced that Seville Mayor of Harrison Township, that vacant property, 103 acres over there, is now going to be converted into a state-of-the-art veterans home. That's, again, in cooperation with the whole delegation, both our friends in the Senate as well as in the House, to help make that happen, and it's going to bring more assets to Macomb County, another place for people to come to Macomb County to do business, as well as create more jobs and economic opportunities, as well as provide first-class, world-class service to our veterans who we've made a commitment to, stepping up to the plate and honor their service to us. And so we're looking forward to getting that rolling. As some of you may know, Congressman Mitchell spent his career in education, job training, private job training, and he's interested in that, went into Congress, and he's working with his colleagues in a bipartisan way, both in the House and in the Senate. It's interesting, they're both working collectively on both chambers on bills, and one of them that they passed just recently was a career education and technical education bill that's going to allow more flexibility for states and local communities to use that money to help bring in more vocational workers and other things as they see fit. Basically, the bottom line is there were loosening regulations that were hamstring some of the money that came into Michigan and other states across the country. Because obviously it's a recognition now that vocation education has been on the back burner for too long, and now we're scrambling to let everyone know that there's good paying jobs for all sectors, everyone in the economy, and so that's something that they're working on. It's also going to help improve choice in education, and that's very important. They also fully funded, another thing that affects Macomb County is, and it was mentioned earlier, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Something very important that, the Congressman Mitchell spoke out against the president when he wanted to reduce that number in the budget. And they passed it last year and put it in the budget, and they did the same thing again just recently. And they fully funded the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. And we in Macomb County probably know better than most the importance that those federal dollars do to help leverage local money to make sure the environment's clean and healthy for everyone that's involved with it. So it remains active. They passed a tax cut in Washington, give everyone a tax cut here in our district and in our area, and continue to work on raising everyone's votes. So that's my 2 cents. Any questions?
Great, thanks, Commissioner. Any questions? Of course, we always
See me
know
after
where
the
to,
meeting.
we all know where to see you. Commissioner Brown, I just want to check. I was at that press conference. From what I remember, that was the largest federal grant for any non-federal highway project in the United States ever, I believe,
right.
is from what I remember, right? Okay,
That's
which is
right.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, almost $100 million coming into Macomb County.
Right.
And it's a regional project, Macomb County,
Sure.
but obviously the whole region uses it, and it's a great thing. Can't wait to get it started.
Great. Thank you. So from Senator Jack Brandenburg's office, we have Ken Mateo. Ken? Welcome.
Thank you.
Just a couple of issues that is really on our front burner right now. One that's come up is a bill that's being proposed, Senate Bill 1025. This is a bill that apparently they're trying to circumvent local units of government in terms of doing tax assessments and turning it over to counties. Now, we're still trying to get heads or tails out of what the intent is of the state treasurer in terms of this legislation. And everybody seems to have a different take on this. Like, I've been doing surveys of all the various municipalities and their assessors in terms of what they think this thing really entails, and everybody seems to have a different impression of what it entails and what the bill really calls for. Well, it's going to be our hot potato because it's going to come up before our committee. Jack is chairman of finance, which is tax policy, so we're trying to determine exactly what the implication is. It's kind of interesting because the county here says that we don't have the ability to take over all the assessing, and who's going to want to send all your constituents up to the county, because some of these counties have a long distance between their municipalities where they go to talk to their local assessor to appeal their assessments. You mean to tell me we're going to have to go to the county now to do this? Well, that's what we're trying to find out exactly what Treasury's intent is on this very important piece of legislation. It's very complex, and we're still in the process of gathering information from the local assessors, what their capabilities are, what their understanding is of their role. Will we have local city assessors in St. Clair Shores and Warren, or is it everything going to be handled by the county? To which the county here says we can't do it. So I will keep you informed as we learn more about this legislation, as more information comes to us, and before our committee hearings start coming up here in September. But that's Senate Bill 1025. So keep on the alert for that. Another thing that we've been very interested in, Jack's been very interested in educating people about Public Act 51. Now, every one of us who serves in the legislature, we get these constant phone calls. What are you going to do about our roads? Our roads suck. What are you guys, you're not doing your job? Well, Public Act 51, for those who do not understand it, Public Act 51, all monies that are going for road funding from the state has to be applied under Public Act 51, which applies to each county an allocation based on total gross miles. That's been the big bugaboo that we've been dealing with here since 1951. which means that in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County, we're getting screwed. I mean, that's the simple thing about this. Jack's idea was, if we take Democrats and Republicans and eliminate the partisanship out of this issue, if we can get Genesee, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Monroe, and Washtenaw counties, the senators, the representatives from both political parties to say, look, we got a common interest here. We're all on the same page. We're dealing with the same problem. It's an issue that won't go away, and it's the #1 blister that we're always dealing with. So if we could get everybody on the same page, legislators thinking out of the usual box and thinking in the same box, that we realize that we've got like a whole regional civil war going on here between those of us in the southeast and those of us in the outstate districts. And they're going to say, wait a minute, why, I'm going to tell my constituents that we're going to cut back on our funding? Why should, well, you guys got more money. Wait a minute, we never know when we may need it. It's a sort of a thing that I can remember when I was in basic training at Fort Knox, and the and our mess sergeant came out. Excuse me. My mess sergeant came out and he made me spill this milk all day. And I said, well, why are we spilling this milk? Because we've got more milk coming tomorrow. But this is fresh milk. He said, don't argue with me. You got to get rid of this milk. He said, why don't you simply cut your allocation? And he just yelled, he said, listen, you never cut your allocation. You understand the way the Army does things? You cut an allocation, you never get it back when you need it. So go out and spill that milk. So I have to spill all that milk because more milk was coming. Well, that's the way the outstate areas think about this. To put it quite simply, I know we got more than we need, but hey, your problem is your problem, our problem is our problem. So we've got like this massive civil war going on between different sections of the state. So Jack's idea is, if we can get ourselves thinking out of the box and thinking, and we all get on the same page, we can, with sheer numbers, do something about Public Act 51, which is what we have to change, because no matter how much money we're going to put into allocating for road funding, Public Act 51 of 1951 is still going to kick in. Can't avoid it. And the third issue I just want to bring up is Jack threw out a bombshell earlier this year to gradually eliminate the state income tax. How did that idea come about? Well, Jack and I were having a discussion last year. He says, Jack, do you realize that in the 1960s, Michigan had 19 congressional districts? We now have 14, and we're going to go down to 13. As we lose population, we're losing population because we're losing jobs. You lose revenue. And what happens is we always end up every fiscal year deciding where we're going to cut, and we're fighting over a constant shrinking pie. Now, no matter how much the auto industry is doing for us today, we know that it's still a cyclical industry. That is a basic reality. We're still stuck with a cyclical industry that's going to have its downtimes. And what are we going to do with the next downtime? Well, our idea is, let's think outside the box. How does Michigan compare with states that have no income tax? It's remarkable. The statistics are there. This is a subject for another meeting. I'd like to come back and present you some of the statistics that we've come up with in this regard, but we have to start thinking of the future, because we've got aggressive competitors there across the country. How many people know that in North Carolina, their state business income tax went to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0? In state business income tax. Now, you think North Carolina is a very attractive state? You better believe it is, and the stats prove it. So we have to start thinking outside the box on some of these things. That's why Jack threw down this gauntlet. And okay, let's start thinking about, okay, where are you going to cut the revenue? Well, that's one thing to think about, but let's start thinking about, we're always cutting our revenue somewhere every time we have a business downturn. So what are we going to do to avoid the downturns? What are we going to do to add more diversification to our state? So that's our thinking. So those are some of the 3 issues that we're really focused on right now.
Oh, is that it? Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sure we have some questions. Commissioner
Yeah,
Majek?
thanks.
Oh,
Go ahead. You want to go first? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
Thanks,
Leonetti.
Mr. Manjing. So, Ken, I'm glad you're the first person from Lansing of this delegation that talked about Public Act 51. Commissioner Kraft is a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and I've often asked him, I said, because he works up in Lansing, I said, can't you get those folks up in Lansing to forget about this partisan nonsense? I mean, we've got more representation in southeast Michigan, if you add in Genesee County and if you add in Washtenaw County, that we should have the number of votes necessary to change the formula for Public Act 51. So I'm really glad to hear that from you here. And I'm going to tell this to all of you because I was going to ask every single one of you, do something about this, please. Because let me tell you, it sucks being a county commissioner from Harrison Township where we don't even have a road millage. So I got to rely on county money to try to fix our roads over there. So I get it all the time. I know Jack lives in Harrison Township too, so I get it all the time about how bad the roads are. So this is for all the folks from Lansing that are here. Please, forget about the partisan stuff. Think about our region, okay? And join forces with Genesee, join forces with Washtenaw County, and do something about Public Act 51 so that we can get what's appropriate for the roads. I think Candace Miller, if you want to talk about, she put out a great article. I mean, most of the heavy traffic that we get is from southeast Michigan. The trucks are the ones that are destroying our roads. We're the ones that should be getting most of the money to deal with our 6-lane highways that accommodate the trucks. I mean, Mound Road got money federally. Let's not kid ourselves here, because it's a military corridor, okay? You've got General Dynamics right down the street there and all those heavy trucks going down. You got Ford. You got them all down there, okay? So really, please, I'm really glad to hear that Jack Brandenburg's doing something about that, and I think every single legislator that comes in front of us here in a few moments should think about that forget about the partisan stuff and do what's right for our region. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Majek.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for coming here today. What I don't understand is how can you make a comment like we need to have no sales tax or income tax at all, and how can that be healthy?
Income tax. We didn't say
Income
anything
tax,
about
thank you.
Strictly, we were looking at the
Well, let
state
me
income
finish. Hold on.
taxes.
Let me
Yeah.
finish. What I'm just thinking of as a normal citizen is, you can always argue if taxes are too high or too low. That's one thing. But to say that we want to have no tax at all that provides a revenue, an income source for schools, infrastructure. I serve with Candace Miller on the mid board. We're following, the governor's initiative that said there was a big, I think, $4.5 billion shortage of infrastructure needs in Michigan, roads and sewers. When you talk about numbers like that's a number issue. It's not a political issue, but it's a shortage of revenue. I think here, we have, 4.56 is our millage rate, county mills here. And if we were to cut that in half or eliminate it totally, we would have to make up, who's a budget person here? How much do we get from, I think we get a lot of money from personal property taxes through the county millage. And I think like that mindset, if we did that in Macomb County, what would that do to our budget? That our budget would be $1 million a mill. So that's a lot of money, and we would be really short and have to cut a lot of services for people. And I just don't understand the mindset of wanting to eliminate that funding source that is so crucial to the needs that we have in the state for schools and infrastructure, roads and sewers. So I'd like to hear your thoughts
We're only
on
talking
that.
about income tax. Like these other states have various forms of sales tax, like sales tax, they might have an 8% cap, for example, in terms of a sales tax. For the state will get 6%, and then the local communities can take 2%. So there's various formulas that we're looking at here. So it's not totally eliminating all taxation. We're seeing what the successful growth states are doing to substitute for the lack of an income tax. Why is Texas up there into the $1 trillion? I'll show you Texas statistics, it'll blow you away. They are now the #2 economy in the country. They're going to be the #1 economy as California's imploding.
How can you be so sure the economic side of it to say that the taxes are 100% positively correlated to the growth? It's certainly a part. I can make an argument. I'm an econ major from Michigan State. I can make an argument that maybe the tax rates might be too low and we've lost a lot of tax revenues to special interests in Lansing that don't need it. And with those shortages, we've had, you know, people that don't want to come to Michigan based on schools or roads or infrastructure. You know, I mean, that argument can be made as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that argument can be made, but when you take a look at the statistics of where population growth is taking place and you break down the country by regions like Northeast, the Northeast is losing population and compared to the other sections like the South and the West and so forth, like Florida. Florida's the growth area.
But if you think California, doesn't California have very high tax rates, and there's a lot of growth in people and migration there?
No, it's going the opposite direction, and Texas is benefiting from it. The stats are proving it. So when you take a look at high tax states, or people who believe that taxes are going to be the answer to the panacea to all your problems, that's not what the growth pattern statistics show us in terms of population. So where you lose population, you're losing people, you're losing jobs, you're losing businesses, because they all follow each other. It follows the trend. And if you take a look at Michigan's economic growth compared to those states, it's quite anemic. The statistics are there, and I will be more than happy to come before this committee and provide you with the detailed data of what this. It's very eye-opening. And you cannot ignore those hard numbers. Right. But you can't ignore this hard number. 19 congressional districts in the 1960s, we're now going to go down to 13.
Yep. Commissioner Majek, although this is interested, I was going to say I would like to invite you back to maybe discuss this a little further at one point if you'd like. I think I would.
Thank you.
Most
It's definitely something worth looking at in terms of all the statistics of where it really goes. And the numbers don't lie.
Great. Commissioner Kleinfeld, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, and I'll be very brief because I'm actually giving you food for thought as much as instead of having a debate with you. Companies go where the educated workforce is, and the educated workforce is leaving the state of Michigan because we're struggling with our Parks and Recs programs. Most cities are shutting them down. When you do a cut at a state tax, we all know at the local level that to balance up there, we end up getting cut down here. Mm-hmm. And the residents actually see the benefits of their tax dollars when they're spent at the local level as opposed to being set onward. So just food for thought with respect to why the educated workforce is leaving, and with respect to Texas and Florida. You know, they have the benefit that they don't have to salt their roads every year. Mm-hmm. I've lived down in Texas, and by the way, the parks are absolutely stunning because they've got a whole lot more money than we do because we have to repair holes in the roads. Our roads take a hit because of our weather. We have a lot of expenses up here that they don't have down there that just makes it more expensive, generally speaking, to run a state up in the northern end. Mm-hmm. But we've done two big business tax cuts in the last, I don't know how many years, but there were two big ones done. And I just would ask you to think about why else is the educated workforce leaving? Because the businesses aren't leaving and the educated workforce is following. We're bleeding our young educated, and the business community is telling us we can't fill the positions here. So just food for thought. Well, no, and I know other people have questions, so I don't want to get into a debate because I don't want to end up, other people want to speak. I just want you to carry that back that it was said and something to think about. Just think, that's all, not, you don't have to agree with me.
And Ken, we'll be happy to have you back. This seems like a bigger issue than what we're looking for right now, but I'm happy to have you back. Commissioner Duje?
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. First of all, although cutting the income tax is an interesting proposal, how you fill that gap is a story for another debate.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think the people in Michigan at this point in time, as opposed to cutting the income taxes, would rather see that money going in and fixing the roads and fixing the Law 51 and so on and so forth. road funding is paramount as we go forward here in this state. The other thing that was brought up as far as Texas doesn't have the problem with snow, the problem with weather that we have here in Michigan. So we do have a lot of expenses that they don't have. But after everything's said and done, I want you to take a really good look at Connecticut, and whatever Connecticut's doing to do the opposite. General Electric just left Connecticut and they moved to Boston because it's cheaper in Boston. That, I don't understand it. My youngest daughter went to school in Boston. Boston's ridiculous. But to say that Boston's cheaper than Connecticut is just unbelievable. But we've got to come up with a better way of funding the roads and funding the people. Before we start talking about income tax cuts, fix what we've got. Thank you. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, you are right about that, because that's the number one, like I said, the blister on the sword that every one of us here in the legislature, we keep getting calls on that issue. And that's why Public Act 51 and the education about Public Act 51 is going to be so crucial, because if we can get, again, everybody thinking on the same page that we got a common issue here, this is not a partisan issue, because we're all getting the same phone calls, and they're all driving us nuts and blaming us for it. So this is our solution, that we have to start looking at changing Public Act 51, then our other problems are going to be solved because of the nature of the funding allocation. That's
Mr.
why we're
Mateo,
giving a shorthand.
we certainly agree with the Act 51 thing, and I think that everybody has a lot more questions on the other thing. So we need to keep this moving. I have a lot of people out here. Any other questions? That being said, Mr. Mateo, thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Our next representative here is Representative Kevin Hertel. Kevin, thank you for coming. Welcome.
What was that? Uh-oh, I don't know if that's a good thing. Good afternoon, and thank you, Chairman, and to the commissioners here for the opportunity to be here today. I was excited when I saw this opportunity, because I think it's very important that we all, from the local city governments to county governments to state governments all the way through to the federal level, are working together on important issues that are facing our communities. And there's no doubt, based on the issues that have been raised here today, that there are plenty of those issues that we all have to work together to address. I started my service in the state legislature in 2017. I have the privilege to serve on as the minority vice chair on the House Oversight Committee. One of the first things we tackled this year, and one of the proudest accomplishments in my first term, was to look at the state's unemployment insurance agency. And some of the issues that were occurring within the agency, in 2015 there were over 50,000 Michiganders that were falsely accused with fraud by the agency. Money was taken from their bank accounts. Some lost their homes, their cars. Because of the financial stress, some ended up in divorce. There were all kinds of things that happened across our community and across the state of Michigan because of the impact of this computer error. We worked in a bipartisan fashion, me and Representative Joe Graves from Linden, Michigan. We spent over 900 hours in a conference room with folks from the business community, from the labor community, from impacted individuals. And we worked on a 9-bill package that we passed at the end of last year that addressed some of these issues. Now, I will be honest, there are still ongoing issues within the agency that I am working to address with my colleagues to this day. Some of the individuals who have been affected by this crisis have not been made whole, and so we still have work to do. But I am proud of the work that we did do to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I also serve on the Health Policy Committee. A lot of the work we have done in this term has been to address the opioid crisis. We are very familiar, I'm sure every one of you in Southeast Michigan, with the impact this has had on our community. If you talk with first responders around the community, they are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. There's not a family that hasn't been touched or knows somebody that has been touched by this issue. We have gone after the prescriptive authorities of some doctors to try to make sure we are taking some of prescription opioids out of the market and taking some of that access away. But there's still a lot of work to be done with folks that are already suffering from this crisis. And I think that's the next step we have to tackle, to make sure that we have mental health services provided for these individuals. I've been proud to work with folks in Macomb County from Hope Not Handcuffs and other organizations that are working on this issue. And it's been amazing to see the community come together and the coalitions that Kyle talked about come together to attack some of these issues. I also serve on the Common Tech Committee, and then a big focus of that committee has worked to bring not an issue that we see here in Macomb County very often, but across the state in more rural areas, there's a difficulty with access to broadband internet services. I'm sure Senator Stabenow and Senator Peters have worked on these issues with their constituents. I understand it's important because Michigan, for us to succeed, we need every community to succeed across the state. So this would help bring businesses and other economic growth to some areas in Michigan. So that's been the biggest target of that committee. My office has been focused on two major issues, which I think some has been talked about here today. The roads, of course, are an issue that we all know has to be addressed. I have 3 constituent coffee hours every single month in my district. I actually have one tonight at 5:30. There's not a single coffee hour that a resident does not come to and talk about an issue they have experienced with the roads in our community. I support, and I'm happy to be a co-sponsor of Representative Yarrick's bill that would address the formula on PA 51, but I also believe that if the legislature isn't going to do their job to address this issue, we should take that issue directly to people on the ballot. If the legislature, by the end of this year, does not work to change PA 51, that's something we should start working with the business community and other people across Southeast Michigan and other communities that are facing these same problems to attack this issue head on. And I believe the voters of Michigan will see it for what it is and will grant that change if given the chance to vote on it. Another issue that I have worked a lot on is water quality issues. We all know here in Macomb County, being on the border of Lake St. Clair, there are issues that have plagued our communities for a long time. Now, there's been a lot done in progress towards these issues, but there's a long way to go. And I always say that, in Michigan, we are surrounded by 20% of the world's fresh water. We better start acting like it at some point. To your point about invasive species, Commissioner Duze, and zebra mussels, there was an attempt by the business community in Michigan earlier this session to change the ballast water standards in the state of Michigan. We have some of the strictest in the Midwest because we understand the importance of protecting the Great Lakes. There were some that wanted to change that, which would make it easier for ships to come in and discharge ballast water that could bring in those invasive species. I stood against that with my colleagues. It did pass both chambers in the legislature. The governor vetoed that bill. But I think we have to have a very close look on what we're doing day in and day out that impacts our environment here in Michigan. I have worked on issues with combined sewer overflows, and now we see this issue of PFAS that's emerging across the state and across the country. I have called on, as a vice chair of the Oversight Committee, I have called on the chairman of the Oversight Committee to hold immediate hearings on the PFAS issue. There's a community in western Michigan, the drinking water to that community had to be shut off because of the PFAS that was found in that water. We have reports of issues here in Macomb County from runoff from Selfridge Air Force Base, but the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality in a report has said that there may be as many as 11,000 sites across the state of Michigan that are impacted by this chemical. And I believe, while we may be on summer recess, that we should come in right now because there are residents across this state, across many communities that are worried about the safety of their drinking water. And that's something that should never occur in any state in this country. So I believe we should hit this issue head on and have immediate hearings to find out what the DEQ knows. Those are the issues that my office has worked on in my first term. It's been an honor to serve the residents of the 18th House District, and I've had the pleasure of working with many of you throughout my first term, but I look forward to working with all of you as I continue public service. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kevin. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to bring up a few issues, and I ask you all that are here to listen to them, and you want to talk about them, that's great. I'm going to bring you some concerns from my constituents. First of all, are you aware, you don't have to answer them all at once, I'm going to throw them out there, and if you want to talk about them, that's great. The DNR passed a rule that they can fish muskies all year now, so they took away the season, now it's a year-round season, and they are also looking to allow spearing and all this other stuff with these muskies. And We all know the amount of money that gets brought into here because of these tournaments that happen in Lake St. Clair, and it befuddles me that no one's brought this to anybody's attention other than these fishermen that are telling me the DNR is doing this, but it has to be approved through the legislature. So that's a huge concern for Macomb County. The next thing is Martha T. Berry. I don't know if you've been reached out by constituents or by anybody else, but we have some serious funding issues in mental health. And I'm telling you, we're either doing something wrong down here in Macomb County, or you guys are doing something really wrong up in Lansing, because we're talking tens of millions of dollars that are getting cut out of our budget. We're the only ones that are getting cut. The community mental health, I apologize. And then not Martha T. Berry, community mental health, I apologize. The next issue, and it'll be my last one, and I want you to think about this. Don't answer it today. Leave here. The next time you're invited back, I'd like to hear from you, or if you want to contact me personally. We've all heard of SEMCOG, right? Southeast Michigan Council of Government. 7 counties: Macomb, Livingston, Monroe, Wayne, St. Clair, Oakland, and Washtenaw. 7 counties recognized by the federal government. So when funds come in for roads or anything else, that's where the money goes, and that's how these get divided up. That's why we have that. Yet, City of Detroit has a problem. Who do they go to? Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne. The legislator passes, let's see here, the alcohol and hotel tax, Detroit zoo tax. This all gets approved through the legislature before it can go to the voters. The DIA. I mean, I can go on and on. We're talking about the smart that goes just to the few, but then all of a sudden we're going to do an RTA. Hey, Washtenaw wants to come to the party. Well, why? Because they want a train to go down to the airport? Come on, guys. Take care of your residents that you're representing, because this is ridiculous that we're going to come out of our taxpayers' pockets and pay for these programs, but yet another county in SEMCOG says they want to be part of it now? You're telling me nobody from Washtenaw goes to the DIA? Yeah, exactly. So with that said, you're talking about transportation? Go look at the numbers. There's more people, I think it's 48% of all residents of St. Clair County travel down to go to Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne. Yet they weren't even considered because of politics. If we are truly a region, then we should be all sharing in any taxes that come through the legislator evenly. I'm not saying these programs aren't good or bad, but evenly they should be paid and not just cherry-picked when somebody wants to get on board to help their own residents. That's not fair to the residents of Macomb County. So I ask you to take that back, chew on it, and then you'll call me and say, yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Of course. Commissioner Duge.
I can't help it.
I know.
And I'll direct this to you and the entire delegation, if you will. First of all, thank you for coming. I think this is a great idea. I commend Commissioner Sauger to bring everybody together. Commissioner Carabelli hit on a couple of points. The mental health issue, very, very important. We've got problems with community mental health here in Macomb County. We've been shortchanged, and people promising millions of dollars to help and so on and so forth hasn't helped, and we're chopping programs.
Can I touch on that really
Sure.
quick? I just want to take an opportunity. I think, and I think every other legislator here will want to touch on this, but this is probably the biggest issue that the entire Macomb delegation bipartisanly worked on during this current session.
Okay.
I think we realized the problem early on in 2017 and tried to find ways to work together to look at what the Department of Health and Human Services, the way they were determining their cuts based on the rebasing, and what that meant to the loss of Macomb County, which over, I believe, a 3-year period, and Jeff knows these numbers probably better than me, but a 3-year period, $30 million. We all met with the department, with community health with the Department of Community Health Director, many meetings talking about the impact that those cuts had on residents across Macomb County. You can look at a budget spreadsheet all you want, but Macomb County has still the best mental health services of anywhere across the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
And in my mind, what the Department of Health and Human Services did was came in and penalized them for that.
Yeah.
And the best part about the services they provided was that individuals were living on their own and independent living situations instead of in group homes.
Right.
And that meant great things for their mental health and their continued development as they struggled to get by. And what happened when those cuts came to be is you started putting more and more people in group homes.
Right.
Which took them out of a situation where they were comfortable and put them into a new situation where now they have a whole nother set of problems that they now have to deal with.
Right.
And to reacclimate to that new normal. And so I don't think it was good for anybody across the county. I think it was wrong for the state to do it. We fought to get some funding, and this is why most people in this room voted against the budget. I believe last year and this current year budget going to the next fiscal year. Because the funding that we asked for was not in there for Macomb County Mental Health. And I will continue to vote against every single budget until that funding is there, because it's just that important for our community.
I'm very, very happy to hear that. We've got to do more, and frankly, I think Macomb County can be held out as being a model statewide on doing positive things in that arena. Next, it was brought up trains and railroad spurs and so on and so forth. Very, very important here. The one comment was, at one point in time, there was going to be a line from, I believe it was from Chicago to Cleveland, bypassing Detroit and this area altogether. I think it went down in flames, but I'd like to make you aware, the entire delegation, that this is very important to the future manufacturing might of this area. Second from the last is one thing that I've been kind of passionate about is drugs in the water. And getting drugs out of being flushed down the toilet. We don't have the filters to get them out of our water. And after everything's said and done, there's nothing that says you can give them out. But I'd like to see something come out of the state that says, okay, if you're going to prescribe them and sell them, then have a way to take them back. Because when people pass away, everybody's led to the bathroom and everybody watches all this stuff get flushed. Take it to the health department. I've probably taken at least 125 pounds from some senior connection meetings to the health department. And last but not least, unemployment. Please make unemployment a little easier on the business world as we have it here. Unemployment is the biggest pain in my neck. And I have yet to, even with good reason, I've never won an unemployment battle yet. And I've been penalized no matter what what one of my employees did. And some of it is borders on the criminal. So please take a look at the unemployment laws and what you can do. I understand some of the employers have been unfair in the past, but the pendulum has swung way over. I mean, somebody getting into fisticuffs in the shop and you firing them because you're protection of the rest of the employees, and they get unemployment.
So, Commissioners, can I just point out one thing? There's several. If we went 10 minutes like we're going right now on average,
That's my last one.
We're going to be here an hour and 20 minutes. So if you have questions concerning any of the representatives, let them speak. Maybe we should let everybody speak and then ask our questions at the end. I think that might be a better way to go. I'm sure they don't want to sit here for another hour and 20 minutes. And some of these can be more personal context. And that's one of the reasons we're here, is to get a little more of a personal relationship going, that we can make these calls back and forth. So I'd like to change the format on this right now and get everybody out of here at some reasonable time.
Thank you, Mr.
But
Chair.
thank you.
And please feel free to contact me at any time.
Great.
Mr. Chair,
And it's not you, Mr. Hertel, but I'm sorry, Commissioners.
when we have the delegates here, and we appreciate that, how about we have a sign-in sheet passed around with a phone number that they can be contacted at, other than just calling Lansing and trying to talk to somebody? That
And
would
you
be
know,
nice to have.
Commissioner, what we're going to do too is have a summary of everything that everybody talked about today, the questions, and maybe we'll do some follow-ups, and then what we'll do is we'll give that to everybody along with that sheet, so we have a good summary of what was talked about, and then we have a good follow-up for it too.
With
Have
phone
avenues.
numbers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So that being said, Representative Churkin.
Mr. Chairman,
Welcome,
on his way
John.
up, I forgot to add one thing. The Great Lakes Water Authority is also on that list.
I'm
And he will be
behaving
calling
today.
you. Thank you, Mr. Churkin.
I missed that, Commissioner Carabelli.
Great Lakes Water Authority.
Oh, okay.
I forgot to mention.
Great.
That's your boss's favorite thing upstairs.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name, for those in the room that don't know me, for those in the room that don't know me, my name is John Churkin, and I am the 22nd District Representative, which encompasses all of Roseville and the eastern portion of Warren from Hayes to Shaner. I have had the opportunity to meet a lot of you before, and you know, I want to say I'm really thoughtful and thank you for having us all here today. You know, we meet with the county executive, you know, a couple times a year, but this is the first time in 4 years I got to meet with the commission as a whole, so I appreciate that. I will talk, first, who keeps the timer? Give me 4 minutes and then one for my
We'll
my
give you the high sign.
close, okay? I think I'm in a Roseville City Council meeting now, so. Okay, Marvin. I sit on 3 committees in the state. I sit on reg reform. I sit on oversight with Representative Hertel, and I am the minority vice chair of transportation infrastructure. And the transportation and infrastructure is probably one of the most complex committees that I sit on, and you have to know a lot. You talk about Public Act 51. The minute that I got appointed to that committee, you know, first of all, I asked for a copy of it, and it sits about this big, you know, and there ain't enough hours in the day to go through everything. Then when I had the person from MDOT come in, his name is Seidel, the chairman of MDOT, I asked him, you know, we want to change this so it's more equitable for all of the counties down there. He said, he threw a blank piece of paper on the table and says, that's where you start right there. Throw that book out. So that was meaningful, you know, but, you know, during my stay here now, you know, I've thought about I've worked with Jeff Yarrick and a couple other people to do what we need to do to get, you know, and put bills in to try to ease up the pain from the roads. Biggest thing for Macomb County that I see in the future is the governor has asked through the Transportation Infrastructure Committee to form committees for water quality, infrastructure, and roads. And everybody's going to have to bring, and you guys are light years ahead because Mark Hackle's already done the asset management. He's already come up with $1 billion, I think, to fix all the roads. So he's kind of ahead of the curve. But they want every county in the state to do that, where you guys are ahead of it. But that's going to affect the way money's doled out in the future, whether or not it's for the roads or it's for the water quality or whatever. For those that don't know, when I was the mayor of Roseville, I sat as the chairman of the Southeast Macomb Sanitary District and the South Macomb Disposal Authority, which is garbage, and then one is the sanitation. And it was a very nerve-wracking thing because every time it rained, I had to make a phone call to make sure they pushed that button and let that water out into Lake St. Clair. But the water that was treated with chemicals should have been cleaner than the water we drink at that time. I know there's different places along Macomb County, Chesterfield Township, down in Wayne County when, you know, when that water goes out, and our colleague Pete Lucido, I think, just dropped a bill that he wants to do sanitation and drain water separate in each community, and that's going to cost you a boatload of money, a lot of money. Car insurance, that's probably most of our colleagues in here, that's the number one thing that they talk about. There was a bipartisan package introduced by myself, Representative Green out of Warren, Representative Diana out of the 110th District, Pete Lucido, and Bo LaFave, where it gave a cafeteria style. Now, it's my understanding Mike Duggan's going to come out pretty soon with a new package, but we have one already that we feel confident it's a good one. So, but that fight's coming. I don't know how much you guys, well, you probably hit your pocketbooks already with the insurance. But when after we do this, they come back and say, oh, by the way, no fault's going up 22% on everybody's insurance bill. Well, my phone rings off the hook when I don't know about you guys. But this year, there has to be a bipartisan thing to come to the table and get that done.
They
The
call
only
us
thing
first.
I
We
want-
pass them on to you.
Am I for it?
No, you're
Oh.
fine.
Huh? Oh, okay. All right. Real quick, muskies fishing. I am a fisherman, I am a hunter. That is on my radar, and I've had several meetings with the DNR Commission. I don't know about the year-round muskie fishing, but I know the spearing, they're really not in favor of that, but they're getting, when there's a hearing, you want to come up and testify, that's good. You'll have my phone number on a piece of paper and that. Andrew Duge and Commissioner Toko knows this. We put a drug drop-off thing in front of our PD now. So anybody at any time can come do it. I hope other cities do that too. Last thing I want to say before, I do have a coffee hour next week at Little Joe's in the southern part of Warren. So Marv and Andrew, if you guys want to come see me at 9 o'clock, that's fine. It's on 9 Mile and Shaner. All this stuff that the legislation does, and this is my final comment, and they shrink government, they cut employees out, but I'm like you guys, do you see any more money in your pocket? Because I sure don't. With all this stuff, there just ain't nothing there. They talk about all the stuff that they're doing in Lansing. I haven't got a return. And the gentleman, our good president in Washington, will have to see at income tax time how much money he gave us. Because right now, I don't even know if he gave us anything. But with that, I'm open to any questions.
No, we're going to change that format.
Okay.
We're going to take questions at the end or personally. So, Commissioner Churkin, or Representative Churkin, thank you. Thank you. From Representative Steve Marino's office, we have Mary Kay Soji. Do we have? Oh, there you go. Are you going to, would you like to speak for him? I didn't know you're here, but would you like to say hi?
Basically, everybody knows who Representative Steve Marino is. We represent the 24th District, Harrison Township, Clinton Township, and southern part of Macomb. I do want to let you know that he is on the Standing Committee for Appropriations. He is also on the Subcommittee for Military and Veterans Affairs, Joint Capital Outlay, Michigan State Police, community colleges, and natural resources. I really don't want to speak on behalf of him. If you have any questions or anything, he'll be happy to return your phone call, and I can set up a conference call with Representative Marino.
Great.
Okay.
And based on that speech, he became our new favorite representative. Thank you, Mary Kay. I'm sorry. We have a 2-second comment.
Yes, 2 seconds. I know that we know that Steve suffered a loss recently. Would you pass our condolences on to us, onto him? I'd appreciate that.
I would be happy to send
Thank
that
you.
to him.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner or Representative Yanez. Henry, how are you? Henry Yanez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, for having us here today. I'm State Representative Henry Yanez. I represent the 25th District, which is the eastern half of Sterling Heights and a small portion of the city of Warren. I sit on one committee, that's the Appropriations Committee, and on that committee I sit on 3 subcommittees, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Military and Veterans Affairs, and community colleges. Both the Military and Veterans Affairs and community colleges, I am the minority vice chair. As far as initiatives that we're working on, I think mental health was brought up, and frankly, mental health is just a disaster here in Macomb County. Interestingly enough, the people who run mental health for Department of Health and Human Services have left. One is retired and one has gone to a different department. And I am certain that with whoever is running the administration next year, at the executive level, there will be a new director for Department of Health and Human Services. So we'll have to wait and see what the future holds for Macomb County mental health. But certainly, all of you who are sitting up here who work with budgets, you can appreciate what would happen if you lost $33 million in 1.5 budget cycles. So it's been a huge and negative impact to our community. It's been a huge negative impact to the families of those with disabilities. I want to thank my colleagues Steve Marino and Jeff Yarrick who serve with me on appropriations, for working with us, all of us together. And it has been a group effort. The 10 state representatives from Macomb County have worked together on trying to soften the blow at the Macomb County mental health. And so it has been a team effort. We have worked very well together on that. I was also excited to hear that the new home for veterans landed here in Macomb County. The system that brought that home here, which is called the Authority, was developed in my second term when I sat on this committee. I was proud to champion that system to my Democratic colleagues and got them to support it. Through the old system, it was run by the organizations, VFW, AMVETS, and so forth, and frankly, it struggled. There was a lot of problems with in the Veterans Home up in Grand Rapids, and a lot of abuse issues. And when we switched to this new Authority system, it gave us the opportunity to not only expand, but also to raise money to help provide for care for those veterans. So having this home located here in Macomb County is going to be a benefit not only to Macomb County, but to the families of veterans who are from the Detroit metropolitan area. And you can imagine if you have to put your loved one in one of the veterans' homes, your choice was Grand Rapids or Marquette. And that's a long way to drive when over a third of the veterans in those homes are from the metropolitan Detroit area. So that was fantastic. And then as far as community colleges go, it's been an honor to work with community colleges, the Macomb Community College specifically. One of the things I think we need to note is in the last budget, the $400 million to fund community colleges came out of K through 12 education. And I think the legislature needs to take a very serious look at how we're going to fund community colleges in the future. But that $400 million really needs to go back into K-12 education. As far as anything I'm working on in the future, well, I don't know. I'll have to tell you after November, I could be working on my golf swing. That might be my next thing. But should I go back to the legislature, one of the things that I want to do is work on Public Act 51. One of the things I think we need to talk to our constituents about, and I do this virtually every day, is Public Act 51 is Public Act 51 of 1951. And if we think of how the state of Michigan looked in 1951, it's completely different than how it looks today. This law is incredibly outdated. It's not right for Michigan. We need to do something with Public Act 51. One of the things I've put together is a roadmap to 56. And that means, we need 56 votes in the legislature, in the House of Representatives to pass anything. We need 20 votes in the Senate. So I put together a roadmap to 20 as well. So we'll have to look and see how the legislature looks in next term. But there is a roadmap to get us there, to make that change. But we also have to keep in mind that it's not a zero-sum game. I think that one of the reasons why it's been so hard to change this law is because people are afraid that they're going to lose something. And it was brought up about the asset management program. I think there are ways that we can look at this problem and solve it, not only for those of us who have to bear the brunt of most of the traffic in the state, but for those who have less traffic but want to maintain the roads. And then of course, the other issue that I want to work on is auto no fault. So a lot of us have been talking to voters here the last few months, and I can tell you the top two things I hear day in and day out are roads and the cost of auto no fault insurance. So I'm going to propose that we have work groups for both of those issues, that we put legislators in a room with stakeholders, we lock the doors, and we don't open them up until they come out with a solution that's going to benefit the citizens of this state and Macomb County. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to come here today and speak to you, and I'll be available after this meeting for questions. Thank you.
Henry, thank you, and we hope you can put your clubs away after November if you're not working on your game. Representative Farrington, Diana Farrington. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and everybody on the members here. I am Diana Farrington. I don't know if everybody knows me or not. I represent 30th District, which is all of Utica, part of Sterling Heights, and part of Shelby. So I back right up to Mr. Lucido over there in the Shelby Township. I actually chair financial services. That is my background. I sit on health, I sit on the energy committee, and I also sit on family, children, and seniors. Some of the things that are interests for Macomb County, Representative Marino and myself, we put a bill through that would increase the amount to municipalities and counties for disaster assistance. So what happened with the sinkhole, hopefully this would help as far as funds for anything like that going forward. And then obviously CMH, everyone has talked about here. It always is a concern of all of us in the Macomb County legislation. And we have been good about working together on trying to get funds for them. That is one of my goals, and I have been trying and working to try to get additional funds for that. I don't know about you guys, but my constituents always call me about fireworks. Seems to be an issue always in the summer. So I have a bill out there that would actually allow the municipalities to get rid of the sales and use on large fireworks. So I don't see that moving anywhere, but we'll see what we can do about that, because always in July, it's always calls and calls into my office. Going forward, with me sitting on financial services, passionate to my heart, I do have a bill out there regarding financial literacy. U.S. alone is $1 trillion in credit card debt. Half of U.S. have not saved for retirement, and I believe having a financial literacy course in high school is very important. It's very near and dear to me. I think we need to educate our young ones going forward as they approach into college and be able to budget and know what they're doing with their dollars. So that's really passionate to me coming up in the fall here. I believe we should be having a committee hearing hopefully this fall. Another thing with the Veterans Home coming here, I have another bill out there. It would be a pilot program for veterans who are medics. They would be able to have the supervision, work with a physician under a supervised environment, and have them be able to do certain procedures, like I said, being supervised by a physician. So I'm really kind of excited about that one as well. Other than that, that's all that I have. So thank you. I think I was the quickest one, too, by the way.
All right, you're our new favorite. Thank you. Representative Farrington, thank you. Well, I have. Someone shortstopped you, Commissioner Sowerby, so I guess we'll go to Commissioner. Yes. We'll go to Representative Hornberger. Yes, we'll stay.
No. I've noticed that we are on a lot of committees. There's quite a few of us on health, though. Yeah, so. I am Pam Hornberger, and I'm the state rep from the 32nd District, so Chesterfield Township, New Baltimore, and then a big piece of St. Clair County. I serve on health policy, commerce and trade, judiciary, and I'm also vice chair of education policy reform. If you want to talk about PA 51, I do have some ideas, but I think that we're going to have to hold some bills that the Northern Caucus people want hostage, and there's one coming up, so you might want to take a look at it, Rep. Yanez, HB 6064, any day now. So there's a thought. We're very happy in Chesterfield to welcome the new Veterans Home. It's going to be a great addition to our community and for Macomb County. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm so glad that they decided to put it here in Macomb County and not Wayne or any other area. It's going to be a great thing for us. As far as education goes, it's my passion. I'm a former teacher. I think that we've done a pretty good job this year in some bipartisan efforts to promote and fund career tech programs in education for Michigan schools. With the Marshall Plan, which I feel we kind of passed a little late in Governor Snyder's tenure, but hopefully it will do some good for education. And there are some meetings coming up for local districts to be able to go and apply for grant funding for local CTE programs in their district. And I believe that it's a 2-year funding piece. I think that some of the things that we've done are going to make it easier for kids to embrace CTE. The issue that I saw as an educator was families embracing career tech. You had a lot of families that were pushing for students to go to 4-year college, and career tech kind of got left behind. So once we can take away that stigma and promote it as a community, as a state, then we can move, especially Macomb County with all the career tech things that we have going on and all the businesses that we have that need good workers, then it's going to benefit our state. So with that, I think I beat you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming, Representative. Now, Representative Bill Sowerby. Former commissioner.
Yes, yes, I do, Don, I do. Well, thank you very much for hosting this today. It's an honor being back here and being able to actually address this esteemed body. It was actually 30 years ago this year that I was first elected to this County Board of Commissioners. Of course, it was a different Board of Commissioners back then, but it's great to see my friends and fellow colleagues, 3 of them still here, Rob Myjack, Don Brown, and Marv Sauger. So it's great to be back. I serve the 31st District, which takes in roughly 2/3 of Clinton Township, Mount Clemens, and Fraser. I serve on the Education Reform Committee with Representative Hornberger, and I also serve on the Judiciary Committee with Commissioner Hornberger, or State Representative Hornberger, and I also serve as the Minority Vice Chair of Natural Resources. I want to expand a little bit on what State Representative Hertel had talked about earlier as an important issue that needs to be addressed, and that's the PFAS issue. This is really resonating huge in our state, and it is all across our state, including Macomb County. It is a substance that is found in the making of frying pans, waterproofing products, Scotchgard. Big problem over on the west side of the state where Wolverine Shoe Company is. They did a lot of waterproofing, huge problems there, and it's also found in firefighting foams. So the legislature has appropriated some funding to this problem, but more needs to be done. Right here in Macomb County, we have a problem right off of Selfridge Base, and we have a very serious problem in the Clinton River. And what people fail to realize is that firefighting foam gets used at a lot of industrial sites. At Exalta, the Exalta plant right here in Mount Clemens, on Groesbeck, there is routine firefighting training exercises with their own firefighter units and surrounding communities and training exercises. That foam that gets used oftentimes ends up in the tributaries and into our waterways. Not a good situation. I have appealed verbally and in writing to the DEQ and to the chairperson of the Natural Resources Committee that we need to take this up now. There are a couple bills that can be taken up and address this issue, but more and more problems are occurring. We just heard that there's an issue of no more fishing and or eating of the fish in the Huron River because of the PFAS problem. So that is extremely important to address, and we need to get back to Lansing and get that going. I've also introduced legislation I feel very passionate about. And for a lot of the reason why many of us in this room have seen what's gone on in Macomb County. Unfortunately, Macomb County has experienced some serious corruption in government. And it isn't just about Macomb County, it happens everywhere, but it's right now the epicenter here in Macomb County. And we need to do a better job at the state regarding transparency and accountability of elected officials. We are nearly dead last in this country for accountability and transparency in this country compared to the other states. The fact that we have, as a state house, unanimously passed FOIA bills. You're all subject to FOIA. Every other government is, but not state government. The House last year unanimously passed that. The state Senate refuses to take it up. The leadership does. That's 2 sessions in a row they failed to do that. But something that I've introduced this year deals with personal financial disclosure. Every state in this nation requires their state elected officials to submit personal financial disclosures. Every state except Utah and Michigan. That's it. So what myself and some of my colleagues have introduced bills, and these bills address the requirement of the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, Supreme Court justices, court of record judges, those would be circuit court judges, district court judges, state senators, state representatives, board of education, and the 3 major universities, those board members elected, to all have to fill out personal financial disclosures. That keeps conflict of interest from happening by decision makers. On a regular basis, too often, legislation gets passed, decisions get made that financially benefit an elected official, and the public does not have the ability, or the press have the ability, to research how that legislation or that decision affects somebody's personal pocketbook. That's shameful. That's why 48 of our 50 states have passed something like this. So this has been attempted before in the past. I have one of 4 bills that have been submitted, but we've done something more. Several of us elected officials in the state house members have taken it to another step. We have filled out our own personal financial disclosure forms, and we have submitted them publicly. Mine is available at my website, billsowerby.com, for everybody to review. A number of other representatives have done that as well. We believe that this can be a new wave that can go through Lansing and get done, because that is one of the most important things that our public expects of us, is accountability and transparency, and this is the way to get that done. And then lastly, I just want to speak to the issue that some of us have already spoken to, and that is auto no-fault reform. And that has to get taken care of. We saw a bill that was really not acceptable last year that did not pass. Representative Churkin spoke to another package of bills. There is another package of bills. It's called the Fair and Affordable Plan. It's a 15-bill bipartisan plan. 5 Democrats, 10 Republicans, and this is a bill that will actually take up the issue and will actually address the catastrophic care fund, accountability for that, address the hospitals who have been accused of charging too much in the emergency rooms. It'll address the insurance companies who have unfair, non-driving liability issues that should have nothing to do with, such as your zip code, your financial well-being, whether you're a single mom. All those things that are non-driving factors shouldn't have anything to bear on that. So I think that we will be taking that up. Problem is that there's leadership in Lansing that isn't allowing it to happen, anything being taken up. And we need that pushed, and I think that hopefully we'll get that taken care of. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner, Treasurer, Representative Sowerby. Yeah. Thank you. Representative Yarrick. Welcome. Jeff, how are you?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Honorable Commissioners, come in. You know, I represent the 33rd House District, which covers most of Macomb Township. It goes up into Ray, Armada, the Armada area, New Haven, Lenox, Richmond, the Richmond communities, and the Macomb County portion of Memphis. And, you know, one thing I want to tell you, I served 17 years on the local city council, so I'm a local government guy. I understand the importance of local, be it county, school boards, cities, villages, and the important part that they play. And frankly, one of the reasons I went to Lansing was my frustration with Lansing forgetting that we're a team. I think that there are some people who are elected that think, well, I'm a state rep, so I'm here, and a county commissioner is here, and a congressman's here. I'm going to tell you, it's a level plane. We've all been trusted, and we all share a duty. We know we have this issue regarding Trustee Bucci not resigning in Macomb Township, and I have residents there saying, if you're going to be elected, you need to show up. And fundamentally, this is what I mean to advocate for. We all have a duty. We've all been elected by the people. And in my eyes, we're all equal because we are accountable to our people that we represent. So a few touch base on a few things. I did want to give kudos to Commissioner Brown. Thank you regarding Chief Petty Officer Freewalt from Armada, a veteran who died that spent a lot of time running down by the bridge up on 32 Mile Road, the new bridge, and the family asked that that be named in his honor. And I want to thank Commissioner Brown for helping to make that happen. The family is very pleased that that occurred and that he's recommended being remembered there. You talk about road funding. One of the things I want to tell you is that there's not a lot of coverage in Lansing. Everybody, CNN, everyone's focused, in the federal government. Lansing, there's not a lot of media coverage. So when I go to Lansing and I see 2 and 4 and 7 show up, I mean, we know there's something that, has caused a divide between the parties, but other than that, most legislation is actually passed on a bipartisan level. And actually, I think the Macomb County delegation, we work very well to talk to each other. In fact, when we first got there, it's not unusual that we all go out to dinner together, kind of talk about our issues. There are certain partisan issues that, yes, at the end of the day, those will divide us. But on many things, we actually work together. So, one issue that 5706, my bill, and most of the delegation came on board, was this whole issue of Act 51. I'm glad to hear the Senator Brandenburg's supportive of doing something. We introduced that in March, the idea of dealing with the center line versus lane miles. We get it. Macomb County is a donor county. We have 8.7% of the population. We get 7% of the money. And people say, well, what's 1.7%? What does that really mean? Well, that means about $22 million that should be coming to Macomb County is going to Sheboygan and the UP and making some really nice roads up there. And I'm frustrated, and I believe my colleagues also are frustrated with that piece also, that we're fighting for Macomb County, and it's in a bipartisan fashion. And that bill actually was opened up to co-sponsors for the entire House. When I introduce a bill, I typically send out a co-sponsorship to Democrats and Republicans to allow them to come on and co-sponsor. So we understand this whole Act 51 issue. 5932, another bill, this moves up the road funding plan for 2015. Under the road funding bill, that everybody's registration fees and their gas tax went up. There was the second part was we were going to commit more of our personal income tax, not increase it, but commit more personal income tax to roads. I think it was $180 million that was going to be next year, $350 million the next year, and $600 million and $600 million every year after that. My bill actually said, let's move that up. If we're going to get to $600 million a year, let's just do it now because we need to get it done now. So I promoted that. I heard some frustration about the RTA. I get it. Everyone in my community, actually, I was the chair of SEMCOG's Transportation Committee for a time, so I get it. I understand SEMCOG's role. It's fundamentally about federal funding. It doesn't determine all the funding, but this is how federal funds are determined. So I was a part of that. But RTA, every one of my communities voted no, 2-1 or 3-1 on the RTA. And I introduced an opt-out bill to, regardless if the county voted for it, that our communities could, on their own, decide to opt out and not pay in. And I understand the role of transit, but I will tell you that I've seen the RTA plan, and the farthest bus route that goes into my district was 23 Mile Road. My farthest resident is 15 miles from that. I can drive from Warren to downtown Detroit and come back and go that same distance. I mean, how is it right to have that individual have to pay taxes for a service that's so far away they have to drive 15 miles so they can participate in the system? So I actually tried to have discussions with the RTA. Last summer, I actually went to the RTA board meeting and said, this is the concerns from my district. They actually said, you're the first legislator we've seen come down here. And I said, well, I'm telling you, I'm sharing the concerns of my district. And they're very concerned about senior and disabled transportation, which we already have part of SMART, but what is the RTA going to bring? And regardless of what people sit on, where you guys all sit on the RTA issue, I would just tell you that in my district, we are very disconnected due to our distance, and many of my taxpayers felt that why am I paying into a system that hasn't come to me yet? Let's talk about it when it moves further out. Mental health, this is quite a frustration piece. Again, Macomb County lost $33 million. I think all my House colleagues came together. We had various meetings with DHHS and really hammered on them about this, how we were just poorly treated. A lot of these cuts happened before we got in the legislature. Some of this started, this whole rebasing idea. We lost $33 million, as I said, in 18 months. We were able to restore $5 million in the last year's budget. I will tell you that as ridiculous as it sounds, I'm going to tell you it's ridiculous, but in the appropriates world, because I'm on the appropriates committee, the state wanted to see a match from Macomb County, some good faith money in that. I don't think that you guys should have had to potentially do that, but I'm just telling you that to help things move along, that's how it kind of works. You know, there's all this talk of matching ideas. And I will say, yes, I think it's ridiculous, but Macomb County wasn't able to throw any little match money to kind of say they're, you know, that they were going to, because there was part of that, how that comes together. And I get it. There's a lot of things I've had to learn about state and federal funding that's ridiculous, that I look cross-eyed to some of these people and say, how do you even keep running this government this way? But sometimes you have to run with the game that you have to do what's best for your community. But I'm happy to say we were able to get $5 million back. $1 million went into this budget. I will say that I voted no on the general budget because I'm frankly tired of it. Macomb County, again, losing $33 million, $22 million in road money going out. And I will tell you, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue, because I've talked to people who were in majority when Democrats were in charge. For whatever reason, Macomb County does not get a fair deal in Lansing, and I don't know why that is. I absolutely do not. We are an economic powerhouse in this state, and we should get the respect of that. We're the defense corridor, and we definitely should be on equal footing, with our brothers and sisters in Oakland and Wayne County. But that's why I voted no. It was just I had enough. PFAS, I will just tell you a little bit about my little bit on PFAS. A lot of that goes back, it was in firefighting foam. I served with Chair Smith with the Clinton Township Fire Department for many years. When they brought up that this was in firefighting foam, it connected me personally talking about it, because what happened, when I was a firefighter, actually I did research on this. I was on the hazmat team. I understood this stuff. And the material safety data sheets for foam, and even when I talked to the company doing research, never talked about the hazards that were involved here. Never. It was never in their material safety data sheets, and we were using foam for training and various things, had no idea what kind of effect it was going to have. And so I actually have a bill, and I've gone in with Representative Aller from the west side because she has this issue. And I have one property in my district who potentially is a site, and they have been notified by DEQ, and DEQ has been working with them to get them information on what they need to do. But I have a bill that says that you can't use foam for training anymore, that we need to hold on to that foam for real incidents. I mean, and I know as a fire instructor myself, there are other ways to practice use of foam without using real foam, and then containing it so that we don't do any further damage. One of the difficulties with foam is that the new stuff may not be any safer than the old stuff. And the reality is, with flammable liquids, water just doesn't put it out. And if you may end up having to use foam, but that you do, we need to contain it. So those are kind of some of the areas that I've been working on, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Representative Yark, thank you very much. We have one more. Representative Pete Lucido couldn't be here. In his place is David Fisher, and although I will miss Commissioner or Representative Lucido, this might be a quicker
perhaps, maybe not quite as entertaining. I'm here on behalf of Representative Lucido. He very much appreciated the invitation to be here, and if he was in town, he certainly would be here, and he would make himself available to address this body or any individual who may want to speak with him. Myself, I'm a recently retired executive, and I'm spending some time helping the representative in the district, and so this was a case where I was able to help him out. Mr. Lucido is the 36th House District. As you may know, that's Shelby Township, Washington Township, Bruce Township, including Romeo. It's a square basically from the Lapeer County line down to Hall Road, and from the Oakland County line roughly to Hayes. He currently serves on the Law and Justice Committee, the Tax Policy Committee, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and the Financial Liability Reform Committee. He asked me to talk to you about two subjects, one, water quality, and the second around maintaining principal residence exemptions. On the water quality side, he's very passionate about trying to do what we can to maintain our water quality. And he has concerns over discharges of waste and chemicals into the rivers and into the lakes, and the harm it can cause both to human health and the economy, the health of our economy. In that area, he has submitted a House Bill 6278 around sewer separation. He does feel passionate that sewer separation is required to really address this issue. And he's also committed to work with the communities to find a way to make it affordable in terms of looking for long-term funding and looking for other things. And I know that he has worked with Representative Hertel in looking at these areas. Second area that he has that he's very passionate about is the PFAS issue. He has put in a House Bill 6868 around the proper and in a bill request 6824 all around how to manage and control the use of these. And he's also looking for a resolution to basically ask the federal government also to get involved, because this is a big issue affecting a lot of people beyond just the state of Michigan. He also is very much wanting to make sure we control and watch what's going on into the water. He has put in a House Bill 5285 to bring back the water monitoring systems that we had in the past. You know, how do we know whether people are following the rules if we're not testing them and checking them? Particularly areas that are outside of our control. It could be the chemical plants from Sarnia, Ontario. So how can we make sure that we're not being affected by those? And then finally, in the area of water, he's very much feels that everybody who benefits from the resource of water should pay their fair share. That's including the water bottlers. He has a House Bill 5133, which really tries to put a small fee on those water bottlers so that as they're getting a benefit of our natural resource, that we're getting the benefit of them helping to maintain our infrastructure. The second area he wanted me to talk about was maintaining principal residence exemptions. And there can be cases where due to a tragedy beyond your control, that exemption becomes in jeopardy. Recently, House Bill 4905 was signed into Public Act 133 of 2018. What this does is, say you're living in a house, you have that resident exemption, you become ill and you have to convalesce outside of your home, maybe outside of the state, that you should not lose that benefit of that personal resident exemption. And so that has recently passed. Second is a similar case. If you were subject to a catastrophe, a flood, a tornado, something knocks your house down, and you are forced to live outside of that home while that house is being rebuilt. The House Bill 5454 would allow you to maintain that exemption while that house is being rebuilt. So those were two areas that he definitely wanted me to talk about. You know, how they affect the residents of Macomb County. I think it's clear. Clean water, good for our health, good for our economy. If it goes the other direction, bad for both. The areas of these personal resident exemptions, I think it's the right thing to do. A person who is struck by a disaster or something that happens to them because of their medical condition shouldn't be further impacted by losing that important exemption. The last thing I'd like to mention is there's a lot of talk about the roads. Pete has been a very vocal critic to Public Act 51. And I think you'll find that he will be a colleague in support of changing that. He also has House Bills 5847 and 4890, which really address transparency in the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Fund. Pete believes strongly that that fund, if it was properly looked at, could be a source of additional funding that could help the residents of the state of Michigan. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to taking any questions back to the representative and making sure we get a response to anything that you may have.
David, I thank you very much. I think we're going to change the format at this point, and unless anybody, we're going to have a little personal conversation, I think, on the side with questions. I'm not going to. Unless someone has a question that they just feel that they can't live without asking right now, I would like these ladies and gentlemen to want to come back and not drag them here all night and debate about an individual issue. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick 5-minute break at max, and we just want to get one picture, and Patty's going to run this, and then we're going to get back. We will. The rest of our meeting should go probably within 5-10 minutes. So if you would like to stick around for that, if you don't have anywhere to rush out to, then we could maybe have a minute to talk afterwards. So thank you very much, all of you, for coming. Those of you that can't stay after the picture, thank you. And commissioners, come on back up in this area by Commissioner Romano. Andre, Marv, come on back here. We're going to be back by Commissioner Romano.
Hey, Sowerby, when did you become Italian?
Patty, you might want to